What's up, everyone? We have some big things to go over today. Looking at the stock market, it stayed in basically a $1 range all day long on SPY, and as the market got closer to the end of the day, it came dumping down hard. What's crazy is that Home Depot actually reported their worst sales miss in more than 20 years, and on top of that, they are having their worst year over year sales decline since 2009. So we're definitely going to take a look at this and how it will have an impact on Target earnings before market open tomorrow. On top of that, we of course have to cover the absolute insanity with some of these semiconductor stocks like AMD and Nvidia. They have been on an insane run. And of course, as always, towards the end of the video, we have a basically $3.3 million trade that you won't want to miss, and some awesome, great setups for tomorrow. Volatility is heating up, Tom. Things are about to get exciting, so let's get right into it.
Yeah, 100%. You said it right there. Volatility is heating up. We actually saw VIX take a nice little pop to the upside today as the market started to really dip off there around close, and we actually stayed within this big range that we've been in lately, pretty much between 409 and 414. This has been a huge range. You can see towards the end of the day, we got back towards that big 410 support, bounced off of it. Now in after hours, we're actually popping back up just a little bit. And Tesla is actually having their shareholder meeting as we speak. So keep in mind, guys, this could start to get pretty crazy as we go, but they're having their annual shareholder meeting right now. So I figured I would say that because it could end up causing some volatility heading into tomorrow. And the event's going to probably last here for an hour or so, maybe a little bit longer, but they're going to talk about all types of fun stuff. And talking about fun stuff today, Mike, man, AMD really stole the market by storm, in my opinion here. Up 4.19% at close, even a little bit higher at the high of day, and they just blasted above $100 like nothing happened. I saw some pretty big news today where Third Point actually disclosed a stake in AMD, which is awesome with their 13F filing. I know we talked about Berkshire and their 13F filing the other day. So it's very cool to see Third Point investing into AMD like this. And AMD is really loving that movement. Even Nvidia had a really nice move to the upside today as well. That was a nice continuation there. And we actually saw a few other big tech stocks like Microsoft move to the upside along with others. And whenever we go look at the heat map today, it was pretty crazy. Like on the S&P 500, there was so much red, but the big tech stocks were really killing it today. It was just so diverse across the market.
Exactly. So I saw this very interesting post on Twitter today where basically it showcased the 2023 returns for some of the most popular stocks in the market. And as we all know, just like you said, Tom, stocks like Nvidia and AMD have just been absolute powerhouses this year. And even though they're overbought, the bubble just keeps, or balloon, you could say, just keeps inflating and inflating and inflating. And it seems like it's only a matter of time before it pops. But either way, the balloon's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's hard to tell exactly when this thing will pop. But it's just like the sheer amount of momentum that these stocks have make it very hard to bet against them in the short term.
Yeah, it really does. And it's so hard to bet against them with that momentum. And they're even running through big resistances. Like AMD today just ran through $100 like nothing even happened. If we go to the 5-minute chart, there was a little bit of volatility as it crossed, but to be honest, it just kind of blasted right up through there all the way up to 103 before that consolidation towards the end of the day. It was just a powerhouse day for them. But then whenever we go over to that heat map again, obviously, Mike, man, it just starts looking terrible for some of those other stocks. Like if we look at the Dow Jones Composite today, man, McDonald's, Disney, Chevron, Verizon, a lot of the safe havens, even Walmart, Home Depot, of course, which we're going to talk about a little bit more too, ended up falling down. And it's just crazy to see all those stocks down. But then we go to the NASDAQ 100, for example, and we're seeing like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, AMD really carrying the NASDAQ here. If we go to the QQQ, we can see how much, the NASDAQ rose up compared to DIA, which is the Dow, which had a very bloody day.
Exactly. So it's definitely worth noting. And it's like when those big tech stocks fall, it will be very, very bad for the market overall because, like you said, looking at the heat map, the big tech stocks are really the only things holding the market up right now. So things are about to get interesting. And just like a minute ago, you mentioned Home Depot. Home Depot earnings were a little bit scary today, but surprisingly, the stock only fell by 2%. Tom, they had their biggest earnings miss in about 20 years. What is going on right now?
Yeah, pretty bad. So biggest earnings miss in over 20 years, and they actually had a pretty bad forecast as well. But that's a bad thing to hear. Worst revenue miss in 20 years. I mean, talk about a bad headline, Mike. I mean, it could have been, oh, hey, they still had good growth, but maybe their earnings are down a little bit. No, worst revenue miss in 20 years. That's a pretty bad thing to hear, especially from a big company like Home Depot. And obviously, they're saying here Home Depot customers tend to be homeowners, which makes sense. What do they sell? Bunch of like flowers, obviously wood and stuff for repairs, nails, etc., ceiling fans. I mean, all types of stuff for your house. Now, Target is actually going to be reporting earnings coming up tomorrow morning before open, Mike. And this is actually going to be very interesting here because Home Depot had that bad miss. And a lot of people are looking at Target, Walmart, and other stocks like that coming up over the next couple weeks with these earnings. And with Target here, I have a pretty bad feeling, Mike, that they might end up dipping down. They had that bad sympathy move with them initially, and they started falling off at the end of day. I know I said Target was my favorite earnings play at the beginning of the week, and it could be, but at the end of the day, is it really worth playing? I probably would not be getting calls right here on this one as an earnings play. Maybe some shares for the long term, but it's not looking good for these retailers, especially off the bat here with Home Depot.
All I'm going to say is I hope, or I should say, Target shareholders better pray that Target's earnings tomorrow isn't anything like their earnings from May of 2022, Tom. Check it out.
Yeah, look at that huge move to the downside there. Mike, that was a big gap. And we're going to say that was pretty much like a 20% gap to the downside right there. It was actually even worse if you go to the low that day, like 25% on that gap. So, hey, if that happens again, Mike, we're going to see a pretty big crash on Target stock. And, we've been seeing a few stocks actually break below some of these big supports. Target has a huge support right around $140 even. If we end up falling under that, it's going to be big. They even have another support around 150 that you can watch. It's a little bit closer to the price right now. But yeah, that is a big gap to the downside, Mike. I'm hoping that eventually we can start to fill that gap back up. But man, that Home Depot earnings are definitely scaring me. The good thing that I'm happy with is that Home Depot didn't crash and burn. They're only down 2%, which is pretty good considering the worst miss in 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely keep a close eye on Home Depot and Target for tomorrow. But Tom, also in the beginning of the video, we mentioned about how different indices are moving in different ways right now. So for example, if we look at the S&P 500, it is selling off a little bit more than, let's say, QQQ with the NASDAQ. As the QQQ is mainly tech stocks, and tech stocks have been holding up a little bit better than you could say just your average S&P 500 stock. But one stock that I'm watching very closely tomorrow is DIA. This is the Dow Jones, and essentially it is pretty dang weak compared to other areas of the market. And I'm going to be watching this to the downside tomorrow, so it's going to be close on my watch list for some puts. Tom, if we go to the heat map really quickly, I want to showcase basically when you compare, let's say, the QQQ or NASDAQ or S&P 500, you can see you have all of these different tech stocks all in there, right? But when we switch over to the Dow, there's really only two major tech stocks in there, and that is Apple and Microsoft. In the Dow, we have a lot of other companies like Walmart, Home Depot, McDonald's, Disney, Procter & Gamble, Intel, Boeing, stocks like that that have more of an influence. And to be honest, they haven't really been that strong lately. So overall, I'm watching DIA to the downside tomorrow, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I could see it. A lot of those stocks that you mentioned have been pretty crazy. Like if we go out to daily charts, like on some of these stocks like McDonald's, for example, I think this one's been a bit of a sleeper, Mike. Look at these all. I don't know if I think it is all-time highs actually with McDonald's here, almost up to $300 a share. That is a huge psychological level. You would think that these stocks are going to start to pull back a little bit, and I think that it's about time for them to. So I'm with you. I think the DIA is an awesome potential play for tomorrow and even over the next couple weeks. I think that we could see this one down. And I'm actually watching a stock in the Dow, Mike, to the downside. So one of my plays is actually Walmart. Okay, I usually love Walmart to the upside. So don't think like, hey, Tom's a Walmart hater here, anything like that. I love them as a company. But look at this perfect double top right around 154.50, 155. If they continue on this downtrend, they maybe break below this support here right around 149.50, just below that big 150 area. I'm going to really watch some puts here. Like you said, Mike, it's kind of like the Dow, very overextended. And I feel like that we can see just a bit of a pullback coming in. And we're actually starting to see that now. You know, we have that hit up there at resistance and two big red candles to follow.
All right, good stuff. I'll also keep this one close on my radar. But another stock I'm watching is UVXY. Essentially, when everything starts to sell off, this stock booms. Today, it closed up by 4%. And honestly, the market didn't even really fall that much today. But like when there's some true selling pressure and fear, UVXY just explodes like a rocket ship. So it'll be close on my watch list to the upside tomorrow. You know, if we see that continued panic selling, just like we saw today at close, this one can be pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. You know, UVXY can get some pretty good pops to the upside. If I actually go to the trend line here from the recent low on May 1st here to the high up around May 4th, we actually had a nice 28% pop out of UVXY. That's just a few days there on that move. So yeah, if we have some big pullbacks, I think this one could be really set to go. And whenever I go to a VIX daily chart, Mike, you know, I've said it so many times. I hate to bring it up again, but we're right on that big trend line. If we start to really trade back up towards the upper levels of this again, that's going to be a huge move and possibly a big pullback in the overall market there. Now, we've been talking about a lot of stocks pulling back, Mike. I cannot go without mentioning Penn right now. I was actually eyeing this stock up for a potential support bounce whenever it was bouncing here around 25, but we never got any good momentum back up. Now I'm going to have to actually watch it to the downside, Mike. New lows of the past couple years. Like I said earlier with Target, some of these stocks are breaking below recent supports. Now, I know Penn is way different than Target, but it just goes to show some of these stocks are starting to make yearly lows here. So I'm going to really keep my eyes on Penn. It has a lot of momentum to the downside, and I feel like puts can definitely be a good play. And Mike, for anyone out there who knows Dave Portnoy, he's going to be very upset about this play. Man, I know he has a ton of Penn shares, so for everybody out there who knows him, man, he's going to be upset.
All righty, there we go. Well, with that being said, Tom, let's get right into some momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, Tom, we actually have Walmart to the downside, and it looks like you stole this one.
Yeah, exactly. 149.50. That is a big support. I will say 150 is huge too, but for some reason, Walmart's actually went 50 cents lower, and we keep getting those bounces right at 149.50. So if we break below there, that's going to be the big support to watch. If we get below there, I think puts could be great for a day trade, but even possibly for a swing.
All right, with the next one, we have Apple also to the downside.
Yeah, AAPL. They've actually been channeling just like the market over the past couple weeks. They had that nice pop up with their earnings, then they've just been very flat, failing to break above 174 to 175. If they break tomorrow under 171.40, I'm going to watch for those puts. It's just above that low of day today.
All right, and with the last one, we have Baidu, and we need both directions.
I'll say, Mike, this one is awesome. We were talking about these China stocks to the upside a ton yesterday. They're almost double topping here if you look at that high in pre-market. So if they break above 134.50, watch for those calls. I have a feeling this one might go on a nice continuation. I love that. If it does end up pulling back, though, back under 130 even, which is a big support now, I'm going to watch for those puts.
Sounds good. So you guys heard Tom. We have that upside level on Baidu. If it breaks above that, we're watching it for calls. Don't forget about the downside level as well for puts. And then last but not least, or not last but not least, with the two other plays, we have Apple and Walmart, both of which to the downside. So watch those levels on those stocks. But it is now time for my favorite part of the video, which is the big money trade of the day. We have a pretty big one today, Tom. We have $3.3 million that went into TXN. More specifically, it is the TXN 150 strike put options that expire on July 21st of 2023. So Tom, looking at the stock right now, it's lingering right around $164 a share. This is a semiconductor stock, and a lot of semiconductor stocks have been doing pretty good lately, like AMD and Nvidia. But these 150 strike puts are around $14 out of the money. There's also, some time to them. To me, it looks like some hedge fund or institution is looking at TXN right now and saying, you know what? I want to be protected in case this stock tanks down. So to me, this looks like a giant hedge play from some hedge fund or institution. So for those of you who don't know how put options work, in the event that TXN falls down, ideally past $150, this put play can print like millions of dollars essentially. So I will keep a pretty close eye on TXN over the next couple weeks and honestly months. But Tom, what do you think about this setup?
Yeah, 150 is pretty far down there. It's a little bit out of the money, but there's a big support here around 160, and even that 150 area is a big support. So if we start to fall under this 160 spot, man, those puts are going to start to explode up in value. So I like it, and I like that it's pretty short term as well. So I feel like they could be watching it to the downside. Whenever you first mentioned this one, Mike, I immediately thought of those calculators we used to use in school, the TI-84s. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
I could not forget the Texas Instruments calculators. But hey, the stock looks pretty good. It's actually had a pretty good past few years. It's been consolidating here a little bit lately. If it goes under this support, I can see a pretty good test of that 150 area down there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep a close eye on it over the next couple of weeks. But Tom, so far over this week, we had a couple decent earnings reports, but realistically, we are coming closer to the end of earnings season. What is on the schedule for the rest of the week?
Yeah, so we actually have Cisco tomorrow and after hours. That actually might be a little bit more fun to watch than Target. Target's going to probably be a bit of a slow mover. I know that they're going to be talked about a lot, but CSCO, Mike, this stock has been all over the place, having gap ups, gap downs. Even lately, it had a pretty big gap to the downside in the middle of April. So I will be watching Cisco on their earnings tomorrow. That's going to be pretty big. And then on the economic data front, Mike, it looks like we're going to actually have the building permits coming out 1 hour before the market opens, along with some more here like MBA mortgage applications, stuff like that. So keep your eyes on some of these numbers tomorrow. I don't think that they'll be groundbreaking for the market, but some of those earnings are going to be pretty big. Target and then Cisco there, pretty big day tomorrow.
Yeah, there we go. And then you can't forget about like Alibaba and Walmart on Thursday before open. So I'm pretty excited. What excites me the most besides earnings is actually SPY's intraday chart today towards the end of the day. Tom, over like the past week to 2 weeks, we've seen nothing but just straight chop and boring, hard to trade movement. At close today, we saw some actual like good volatility and exciting movement, and I'm really hoping this continues into tomorrow. Whether the market goes up or down, that doesn't necessarily matter, but the way in which it moves is very important. I'm kind of sick of this choppy movement.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. It's just been stuck in this range for a little while now. I really feel like that this big 410 support, if we get under there, we could start to fall down quite a bit more, in my opinion. I've really been watching this purple trend line lately. We've been hitting off of here time and time again. Even yesterday, we had a perfect touch right off of that. And this morning, we got damn close to it. So I'm going to really watch this. If we break this to the upside, I might watch the market up, but I'm going to really watch for that drop down. I feel like that there was a lot of selling pressure towards the end of day today, and that's a pretty big support there. So We have to break this area eventually, Mike. The main question is when are we going to? I feel like we're getting to the end. It's been like 4 or 5 days of this up and down, staying within the range movement. So eventually here over the next day, couple days, I think we'll finally get out of here.
There we go. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And last but not least, we want to give a giant shout out to today's Discord member of the day, Odin. You've been in the chat for around 2.5 years now, and your activity has been increasing over the week. So make sure to keep it up. Huge shout out to you. Besides that, let's have an amazing rest of the week.